Hi everyone, Fenris Models here, and today we'll be taking a look at the Nagoya Castle kit from Doyusha in 1/700th scale. This kit itself is a relatively small one. Not just by scale, but it only has 3 half-size sprues and a base, and I think a total of 48 parts. Now, at this scale, the rock foundation of the castle doesn't have deep enough grooves for a wash to really hold, so I opted to do a form of pre-shading. Using a fine-tip Sharpie, I marked along every rock. Fair warning with this technique here though, permanent markers show through paint very strongly. It takes quite a few coats of paint to cover it up. While we don't want to completely hide the markings obviously, we don't want the final result to just look like a bunch of hand-drawn lines. Especially since, well, as you can see, I'm not exactly much of an artist. Model Air Dark Ghost Gray 71.120 was applied over the entire foundation. When you first apply it, it'll look like it has perfectly covered those markings, but as it dries, the marker will still show through. I think this took a total of 6 or 7 coats to really get the ideal opacity over them. To give some realism to the stonework as well as some visual interest, I picked out various stones in Game Air Cold Gray, Model Air Light Gold Gray, Model Air IJN Ash Gray, USAF Light Gray, and finally Flanker Blue. The moat around the castle was then picked out in Game Color Turquoise, 72.120. And then the last thing to do for the base, for now, is to use Model Air Black, 71.057 to pick out the entryways into the 2 main buildings. With the foundation laid, we can start working on the buildings. While a few were one-piece items, the 2 main buildings had 4 walls that needed cementing together. Once the walls were together, the eave roof pieces were then added. And then a bar with the 2 shachi were attached to the roof. For the smaller buildings, it was just the roof that needed to be added to the walls. I did hit a snag, however, with the main building. So I've run into an issue with the main body of the castle here. I pulled the roofing portions down just to kind of dry fit to see how everything kind of goes in place before I clean them all up. As you can see, they're kind of really rough. And, well, I didn't notice here on the top one, we have these kind of little ledges around the windows, which has snapped this upper piece in place, and I cannot get it off to clean everything. So we're gonna try to clean it while in place, and we're gonna see how that goes. But like if you look into some of the eaves up there, there's definitely some flash that needs cleaning out in some of those, and I'm not gonna be able to reach that. So yeah, sometimes these things happen. So I did my best to clean the eaves. Once happy, I fixed them in place with some Tamiya Extra Thin. However, so it turns out I've made an even bigger mistake now. These little eave frame things, I don't know what you'd call them exactly. You know, they go here, but they're supposed to be glued from the inside. They don't fit properly like this, and I can't just like slide them in. So I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna get these installed. Whoops. Now, in the end, I was able to pry the pieces off and then get those pieces installed, but it wasn't fun. so just make sure to thoroughly read your instructions before you move on. I guess that's really the lesson here to be learned. Now, while I was at the stage, I happened to have a few photos of the castle itself pulled up, and I noticed that these eave support wall things were a darker green than the roof was. So I gave each a coat of Model Air Olive Green 71.007. Then they were all glued back in place. Then, Model Master Acryl Gold 4671 was used for the golden shachi. Now, I'm not sure if all 4 should be gold or not, so I just went ahead and painted the others as well. Most photos of the second building were a bit washed out, and so it was just really hard to tell. Other than that though, the colors the plastic was molded in were pretty spot on. Now, I'll admit, I've been a little burnt out on models lately, so part of the reason I picked up this kit was I wanted something that was easy, that I didn't have to work too hard to get something that would look pretty good in the end. And, well, I think that's the case here. All the walls and the roofs really needed then was some Tamiya Panaline accent color gray, washed over to give that aged, weathered look. And I wasn't very neat with it either. I really wanted it to have that natural unevenness that you see in the real thing. Once that had dried, I could install the buildings. The smaller ones had little locating tabs that helped lock them in place, while the larger two had small rectangular ledge they would sit on. The kit also did come with this small name plaque that I cemented in the open space here. For the grounds, the kit came with a small bag of green flocking. However, it was a little too bright in my opinion, so I mixed in some Woodland Scenics blended turf to give it some more variance. White PVA glue was then applied to the entire base. Using an old tatty brush, the glue was spread out into an even layer. I find that it helps to have a brush dedicated to only being used with glue. I don't use this for anything else. Even though I'll clean it immediately after use, this prevents any dried glue from getting into the bristles and messing up any of my regularly used brushes. The flocking is then applied over the whole base, making sure to get it into every corner like the north gate yard. Flocking was also applied to the path leading up to the gate and the walkway between the two larger buildings. The glue was given a little time to tack up, then the diorama was flipped over and then gently tapped to allow any of the excess flocking to fall off into the box below. This would be gathered up and reused into future projects. A second blend of burnt grass, yellow grass, and earth-colored turf was sprinkled into places to add some more visual interest as well as to mark areas of higher travel. Red and white flower turf was then applied in various places. To lock it all in place, Woodland Scenics Scenic Cement was applied with the pipette over everything. Since the turf is essentially finely shredded spongy foam, the Scenic Cement gets quickly absorbed and once dry will prevent any flocking from falling off. Once it had dried, more PVA was applied, this time in select places, and Woodland Scenics clump foliage was then used to represent the trees that dot the castle grounds. Now, since this kit represents the castle as it was in the 1400s, there's no real way to know where exactly to place the trees, as the current castle is a modern reconstruction after the American fire bombings in the 1940s. So I just picked a few places that looked aesthetically pleasing and put them there. Red and white flowers were also added to the trees just to give them a little more visual interest, as well as to tie them into the ground a little bit better. And then Scenic Cement was once again added to lock those in place. Now, frustratingly, my record software decided to act up on me with the last part. The plaque was simply painted in the same Model Air black as before, but the frame and the characters were picked out in the Model Master Acryl Gold. The edges of the diorama were also painted in that same black. Once all of that was dry, I called this one complete. And there we go, a quick build of Doyusha's Nagoya Castle in 1/700th scale. I really enjoyed this kit. It was something different and a lot of fun. Despite the error I made with the main building roof sections, I think it turned out quite well, but let me know what you think. I'm probably going to try to grab more of these kits. They're easy to find, relatively cheap, and I think a great value for what you get. Maybe next time I'll build Himeji or Odawara, or just in general one of the other larger castle complexes. If you'd like to see that, definitely let me know in the comments below. Thank you, Callie Bear, and all of my starter set patrons. Your support is invaluable and keeps this channel going. And thank you for watching. If you want to stay up to date with my videos, make sure to like and subscribe and click that bell so you get alerted when the next one goes live. If you want to see more of my content now, how about checking out this video here of my samurai diorama, or this one here that YouTube thinks is just right for you. Either way, remember, stay safe and keep modeling.